Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has come out in opposition to Israel's control over Gaza after the war. He's calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to rule out such a possibility and to consider Palestinian alternatives to Hamas immediately.
I call on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to declare that Israel will not have a civilian rule over the Gaza Strip, that there will be no Israeli military administration in the Strip, and that a governing alternative to Hamas in the Gaza Strip will be promoted immediately.
Let's now speak to Akiva Eldar, who's a political analyst. He's also a contributor to the daily Israeli paper Haaretz, joining us from Tel Aviv. Akiva Eldar, welcome back. So these public disagreements that play out on everyone's screens between the war cabinet and the Israeli cabinet ministers, they've really been going on for months, but we haven't seen any real fallout or any resignation, no resignation of the government even. What do you think they're about? Are they just a smoke and mirrors campaign?
No, I don't believe so. I think that we are in a turning point. In a democracy, even, a very strong prime minister, very popular, well, not as popular as he used to be, cannot just send children. We're talking about the people that just died. The soldiers are 18, 19 years old, without telling them and their parents what is the purpose of this war. And this is actually what Gallant said. And this is the first time that a member of a coalition of the inner cabinet is saying that. We heard all kinds of leaks from Benny Gantz. We heard just a few minutes ago about the leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, who was actually telling us that this war is going nowhere and accusing Netanyahu for lack of leadership. But now this is something else. This comes from the heart of the Likud. Mr. Gallant, the Minister of Defense, is taking the risk of losing the next race for premiership. And you hear more and more voices. For instance, today in Haaretz, a former major general, he was the ombudsman of the Ministry of Defense, who is accusing Netanyahu of acting against his people, or that he is going off the rail. You have now a group of 800 mothers who are crying to stop the war, and more people will say, we will ask our sons to go to prison and not serve in the army because Netanyahu is number one, not telling us what is the end game, and number two, what is he doing about the 132 captives that are dying in Rafah.
Look, you were just mentioning the soldiers that were killed a moment ago. This area that the soldiers were killed in is in the north of the Gaza Strip. And this is an area in which the defense minister himself said just 4 months ago that he announced, in fact, mission accomplished, that they've gotten rid of Hamas fighters in that area. But clearly, what we see, that's not the case. How is this being viewed in Israel?
More and more people really don't believe what they hear from Netanyahu, that we are heading towards the absolute victory. It sounds more and more in a good day like, a populistic message. In a bad day, it sounds like a bad joke. As you just said, Doreen, the Israeli army is doing another U-turn back to Khan Yunis, and they will be back to the northern. And I think that the Israelis also realize that, in June next month, we are going to mark 57 years of the occupation. And I remember there was a major chief of staff, Dan Shomron, who said already in 87, after the first Intifada, that look at what happened to Algeria. There is no military solution to a war that is against people who are fighting for their freedom. Now, more and more Israelis are very worried about what Netanyahu is doing to our special relationship with the United States. It looks that he started the countdown for the American elections, hoping that his friend, his old friend, Donald Trump, would be back to the White House and save him from, the ultimate thing that is waiting for him is prison.
Right.
His trial is still continuing.
Mr. Eldar, I just got to ask you about one last thing since you're with us, and that is the U.S. Central Command now announcing a pier for supplying humanitarian aid to Palestinians is expected to be operating within days. This is their statement. They said on X that the U.S. Central Command says the temporary pier has been anchored to the beach in Gaza. It says that trucks carrying humanitarian assistance are expected to begin moving ashore soon, and the United Nations will receive the aid and coordinate its distribution in Gaza. I got to ask you your thoughts on this development and how you're covering this at Haaretz, particularly when a lot of people say, well, look, you have crossings into Gaza. Why don't you just pressure the Israelis to open up the crossings and allow aid in?
The answer is that Israel lost control over what's happening in Gaza. On one hand, today, the International Court of Justice is looking at the South African and both the Egyptian appeal about, what Israel is acting in Gaza, bringing famine, and Israel has to answer. So actually, the United States is helping Israel to answer the question, what are you going to do about the starvation in Gaza? Actually, the United States took over the responsibility for the lives of people who live in Gaza under Israeli occupation. Israel is not able to supply. In the last few days, settlers in the West Bank have attacked trucks who came from Jordan, who passed the Jordan River on their way to Gaza, and has burned the supply to Gaza. So, yes, the United States is telling us, the Israelis, that they don't trust our government and they are taking over. And it comes with the message that don't expect us, the United States, to supply you more ammunition to kill more civilians. So this is the first time that I remember, I've been covering the relationship between Israel and the United States for the last 40 years, almost 40 years. I don't remember anything like that. And the Israeli people are watching. And I believe that, as I said before, we are heading towards probably new elections, because this cannot go on. The Israeli people understand that it will come from the grassroots. It will not come from the government. Netanyahu has got 64 solid fingers in the Knesset,
right.
But there will be more and more mothers who will refuse to send their children to Rafah.
Okay, thank you, Akiva Eldar. Thanks for speaking to us from Tel Aviv.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.